Jamal sat in the back row of his history class, his fingers lightly tapping against his desk as he listened. Mr. Whitman stood at the front, his voice flat, his words droning through yet another lesson that barely skimmed over black historical figures. Jamal had heard enough. "Mr. Whitman," he said, raising his hand, "you didn't mention the economic impact of Black Wall Street or how it was destroyed. Shouldn't we talk about that?" Mr. Whitman paused, lowering his textbook slightly. His lips curled into a tight smirk. "Jamal, we're covering the material required for the curriculum. There's only so much time in a school day." Jamal straightened in his seat. "But we had time to spend 3 days on the Founding Fathers. Shouldn't we at least acknowledge the full scope of history?" A few students snickered. Mr. Whitman let out a sharp breath, shaking his head. "Jamal, maybe if you spent as much energy studying as you do questioning, you wouldn't have failed last week's quiz." The room fell silent. Jamal's jaw tensed, his ears burning as a few quiet laughs rippled through the class. "That quiz had trick questions," he muttered, his voice lower now. "You marked my essay answer wrong even though it was factually correct." Mr. Whitman folded his arms, the amusement in his eyes barely hidden. "I marked it incorrect because you didn't provide the answer in the way I expected. Success isn't just about knowing things, Jamal. It's about understanding the system you're a part of." Jamal clenched his fists under the desk. The system. That word had been thrown at him so many times it had lost its meaning. "Face it," Mr. Whitman continued, his tone now sharp. "Some people just aren't meant to be great. You'll never be successful if you don't learn how to follow the rules." Laughter erupted across the classroom. Jamal felt every chuckle like a slap, every whisper like a reminder of where he stood in this school. He wanted to shout, to say something, anything to prove Whitman wrong. But he knew no one would listen. After class, Jamal stormed out, his backpack slung over his shoulder, his thoughts tangled in anger. By the time he got home, his mother was already in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. She turned at the sound of the door, immediately sensing the weight in his shoulders. "What happened?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Jamal dropped his bag by the door and ran a frustrated hand down his face. "Mr. Whitman," he muttered. "He embarrassed me in front of the whole class, told me I'd never be successful." His mother stopped stirring. Slowly, she set the spoon down and turned to face him. "And do you believe him?" she asked. Jamal exhaled, looking away. "I don't know," he admitted. "I try. I work hard. But no matter what I do, they act like I don't belong. Like I'm wasting my time even trying." His mother walked over, tilting his chin up so he met her gaze. "People like him don't decide your future, Jamal. You do." His throat tightened. "But what if he's right?" She shook her head. "No, he's scared of you, baby. People like that, they only try to break the ones they know can win." Jamal let those words sink in. A slow burn settled in his chest. Not just anger, but something deeper. Determination. He straightened his shoulders. "One day," he said quietly, "they'll all remember my name." His mother smiled. "Then go make sure they do." Jamal sat in class, his hands clenched under the desk. Ever since he challenged Mr. Whitman, something had shifted. The air in the room was colder, heavier, as if an unspoken punishment had been placed upon him. His teachers weren't openly hostile, but the signs were there, subtle, sharp, and impossible to ignore. "Jamal," his math teacher called, barely looking up from her attendance sheet. "Stay after class. We need to discuss your grades." Jamal nodded, already knowing what was coming. In history, Mr. Whitman continued his quiet war. He skimmed over Jamal's assignments with a frown, marking errors that weren't there. "This isn't thorough enough," he said, tapping his pen against the paper. "You need to apply yourself more, Jamal. This laziness won't get you far." Jamal bit the inside of his cheek, forcing himself to stay silent. The guidance counselor called him in a few days later, her smile tight. "Jamal," she said gently, "have you thought about a trade school? College can be tough, and some students do better in hands-on work." Jamal sat stiffly in the chair, his fingers gripping the armrest. He knew what she was really saying. "I want to go to business school," he said. The counselor's smile faltered for a moment before she recovered. "Of course," she said quickly. "Just keep your expectations realistic." Jamal walked out of the office feeling something unfamiliar. It wasn't just frustration. It was exhaustion. In class, Mr. Whitman's tactics escalated. He called on Jamal for every difficult question, then smirked when he hesitated. He assigned extra essays, claiming he was trying to push him toward excellence. The class watched silently, no one daring to challenge him. Jamal's grades started slipping. Not because he wasn't trying, but because the weight of everything, the scrutiny, the unfairness, the constant battle, was starting to pull him under. At home, his mother noticed immediately. "You're quiet," she said, setting a plate of food in front of him. "What's wrong?" Jamal pushed the plate aside, rubbing his forehead. "Maybe Mr. Whitman is right," he muttered. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I should just—" His mother slammed her hand down on the table, startling him. "You don't get to talk like that," she said, her voice steady but sharp. "That's what they want. They want you to believe you're not good enough. That's how they win." Jamal swallowed hard, looking at her. "I'm just tired, Ma." She softened, reaching out to touch his hand. "I know, baby. But you don't quit. Not now. Not ever." Jamal nodded slowly. Something in her words settled deep inside him, a reminder of why he started fighting in the first place. A few weeks later, he met Mr. Reeves. The businessman had come to speak at a career seminar, and Jamal lingered after, hoping for a moment of his time. "Mr. Reeves?" he called as the man gathered his notes. Reeves turned, smiling. "What's up, son?" Jamal hesitated before speaking. "How'd you do it? How'd you make it in a world that doesn't want people like us to win?" Reeves studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Walk with me." They stepped into the hallway, the sounds of the school fading behind them. "The system was never made for us," Reeves said. "So we learned to build our own." Jamal frowned. "What do you mean?" "You keep knocking on doors that weren't meant for you," Reeves said. "But what if I told you that you could make your own doors?" Jamal's mind raced. "Like starting something for myself." Reeves chuckled. "You got the brains for it. Question is, do you have the drive?" Jamal thought about Mr. Whitman, the guidance counselor, every rejection he had ever faced. "I do," he said. That night, Jamal opened his laptop and started researching. He read business books, watched financial videos, and studied the lives of entrepreneurs. The more he learned, the more something shifted inside him. He had spent so much time trying to fit into a system that didn't want him, but now he was going to build his own. By graduation, Jamal had already started small ventures, side businesses, tutoring services, anything to test his ideas. But when the ceremony came, the school barely acknowledged him. No awards, no recognition, just a generic handshake and a diploma. He searched the crowd for Mr. Whitman, but the man wouldn't even look at him. Jamal clenched his diploma, his jaw tightening. They could ignore him now, but they wouldn't ignore him forever. Jamal sat at his worn-out desk, balancing a half-eaten sandwich on one side while flipping through notes for his business class on the other. His textbooks were marked with sticky notes, red underlines, and 1,000 ideas scrawled in the margins. Between classes, he worked 2 part-time jobs, one at a bookstore, another as a night janitor. Sleep was a luxury. Success, however, was, to me, in between assignments, he built something of his own. A tutoring program for underprivileged students, kids who reminded him of himself. Late nights turned into early mornings as he designed study guides, organized lessons, and worked with struggling students, many of whom had been cast aside the way he once had been. Doubt crept in at the worst moments. "Who's going to take me seriously?" he thought. "Who's going to believe in what I'm doing?" One night, exhausted and overwhelmed, he almost shut everything down, but his mother's voice echoed in his mind. "You didn't come this far to let them stop you now." Jamal exhaled, straightened his shoulders, and got back to work. The business world was no easier than high school. Investors looked at him and saw his skin first, his ideas second. Meetings were filled with polite dismissals, forced smiles, and empty promises. "It's an interesting concept," they'd say, avoiding eye contact. "We're just not sure it's the right time," others added, never elaborating. Doors closed before they fully opened. Each rejection was a fresh cut, a reminder that some things hadn't changed. He left meetings frustrated but never broken. He knew this game. He had played it before. One particularly brutal day, after a potential investor turned him away without even reviewing his proposal. Jamal slumped onto his couch, defeated. He stared at his laptop screen, the numbers on his business plan blurring together. "Maybe it's not meant to be," he whispered. His mother placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Son, you let them win when you stop fighting," she said softly. "And my boy, he was never one to quit." Jamal met her gaze, something rekindling inside him. He had fought before, he would fight again. The turning point came when he met Marcus Hayes, a black entrepreneur who had built a multi-million-dollar business from the ground up. Unlike the others, Marcus saw him, really saw him. "You remind me of myself at your age," Marcus said after scanning Jamal's proposal. Jamal braced himself for another rejection. "Let's do this," Marcus said instead. With that investment, Jamal's company took off. His tutoring centers expanded, reaching schools and students nationwide. News outlets ran features on the self-made entrepreneur revolutionizing education. He sat on panels, gave talks, and became a national advocate for educational reform. Then one day, a phone call changed everything. "Mr. Carter," the voice on the line said, "are you aware that your former high school is being shut down?" Jamal's heart clenched. The same school that had denied him opportunities. The same school that had once told him he wouldn't be great. "It's been mismanaged for years." The voice continued. "Enrollment is down. They're selling the property." Jamal was silent for a moment. "How much?" he asked. The deal was closed within weeks. The news sent shockwaves through the community. Jamal Carter? The same kid, who barely made it through. He owns the school now? The whispers spread. The doubt, the disbelief, the lingering ghosts of their prejudices. Mr. Whitman, still teaching, had no idea what was coming. He walked the halls as he always had, carrying the same quiet authority, assuming nothing had changed, until the announcement was made, until he saw the name on the new leadership board, until Jamal Carter walked through the doors, this time not as a student, but as the man in charge. Jamal entered the teacher's lounge with a quiet confidence that filled the room before he even spoke. The smell of stale coffee and old textbooks was the same, but everything else had changed. His name was now on the school's deed, and the weight of ownership rested on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a symbol of everything he had overcome. Mr. Whitman looked up from his desk, squinting as if trying to place the face in front of him. For a moment there was nothing, just the usual indifference. Then recognition hit. His fingers stiffened around the coffee cup in his hand. Jamal didn't speak first. He let the silence stretch between them, forcing Whitman to acknowledge the new reality. "Carter," Mr. Whitman finally said, his voice carrying the same dismissive tone it always had. "Didn't expect to see you here." Jamal tilted his head slightly, his voice smooth, controlled. "Didn't expect to be here myself, but life has a way of coming full circle." Mr. Whitman set his coffee down, forcing a half smirk. "So you did all right for yourself." Jamal didn't blink. "I didn't just do all right. I succeeded despite you." The words landed heavier than Whitman expected. He straightened slightly, adjusting his tie as if it would give him back the authority that had slipped from his grasp. Now, Whitman said, waving a hand. "I was tough on all my students. You act like I singled you out." Jamal let out a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. "Let's not rewrite history. You didn't believe in me. You didn't think I belonged in this school, let alone anywhere near success. And you made sure I knew it." Whitman shifted in his seat but said nothing. Jamal took a step closer, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. He placed it on the desk in front of Whitman. "You remember this?" Whitman hesitated before picking it up. his own handwriting, glared back at him. A failing grade on an essay, a comment scrawled in red ink. Some people just aren't meant to be great. The color drained from Whitman's face. He glanced up, the mask of arrogance cracking for the first time. "I was just trying to push you," he muttered, clearing his throat. "Look at where you are now." Jamal leaned forward slightly. "I'm here in spite of you, not because of you." Whitman swallowed hard. Jamal straightened, his voice firm but calm. "Your contract will not be renewed. This is your last semester." Silence filled the room. Whitman sat motionless, his mouth slightly open, but no words came. For the first time, he had no power, no authority, no control. Jamal let the moment settle before turning toward the door. "You spent decades deciding who deserved opportunities," he said over his shoulder. "Now that's no longer your choice." Jamal's first order of business was rebuilding what had been broken. The school was no longer a place where students were set up to fail. It was a place where they were meant to rise. He replaced outdated policies with fair, inclusive education practices. He personally recruited diverse, empathetic educators, teachers who saw potential in every student, regardless of background. He launched scholarship programs for students who had been overlooked, making sure that no kid ever had to hear the words, "You aren't meant to be great." In one of the classrooms, a young black student hesitated before raising his hand. His fingers hovered just above his desk, uncertain, waiting. The teacher, one of the many hired under Jamal's leadership, looked at him with encouragement, nodding. "Go ahead," she said. "We want to hear what you have to say." The boy swallowed, then spoke. His voice didn't shake. Jamal walked through the halls, taking it all in. He had walked these same halls as an outcast, an afterthought, a kid with dreams too big for the expectations placed on him. Now, he walked them as the one who had changed everything. He paused for a moment, looking at the school, not as a reminder of the past, but as proof of what was possible. This wasn't just about proving someone wrong. It was about proving what could be made right.